How's it going, YouTube? Coming to today with another video, and today, guys, what the brand new is going to be my new Striker video and how Striker will fare into the future formats. There's a lot to talk about here between Master Duel and the TCG, and when we get Camellia, that card's gonna be absolutely broken, but it's only Master Duel right now, so we'll have to wait. And I'm really kind of upset that they didn't drop it in the set that was very Striker oriented, but you know, whatever. Hopefully we get it soon, in the next 2 years at least, right? But if you haven't already checked out my sponsors over on Imperium, Duelist, Gem, Grimoire, Cloud, Dragonshield, or RAW, definitely go ahead and do so, all down below in the description. Without further ado, let's hop right on into our first topic. The first thing I want to talk about today is going to be Striker is a fair deck. Now, if a deck is fair, the deck is not very good. And unfortunately, Striker, outside of its beginnings, has never really been great. It has a ton of wins. And that's because the deck is such a toolbox deck that it can adapt to any format. Just because the deck won in some of those formats doesn't mean that it was the best. This deck claws to the top, and it's only with the proper pilot. Not a lot of decks you can say that about, because if a deck is extremely pilot oriented, I can't say that the deck itself is going to be that great, because I think a great deck is a deck that someone can just play in autopilot and win, right? A deck is only as good as the deck is rewarding to mistakes. And I think that something like Striker will never be rewarding to mistakes. You could mess up one thing, and there goes your entire tournament run. So that is extremely important. The deck can't really sit behind there can be only one anymore. You could try to draw into it. It's a one of. And then we also have the trap trick builds that we saw before. So definitely a lot of different ways you can play the deck and try to lean on a different part of the game to try to make sure that the gameplay is sustainable. As of right now, there isn't a real go first plan, so you have to go second. But one thing that a lot of people saw in most of my recent list was, especially with Camellia, I play a lot of monsters in my deck, and everyone's like, why do you play so many monsters in Striker? That makes no sense. This is another build right here from my friend Darian. Shoutouts to him. This was from 2 years ago when Prosperity was still at 3, and they played 18 hand traps in the main deck, and they sided into 22. And the spell count is pretty low. And a lot of people get worried about that when they look at Striker. I don't really find this to be a problem, because when you play the deck, once you have 3 engrave, anything you have is live. So it doesn't really matter the amount that you have. It does suck sometimes getting to the number, but even in this build, we only had 1 engage. And I think that nowadays, with 3 engage especially, there's a lot of ways to be able to get card advantage into your hand, and you can run a smaller count and still be okay. The entire thing is that you have to go second with Striker unless you find a really solid like go first build. And I think that with that, you can't let your opponent set up, because even if you can break their board down a little bit, you want to make sure that you can stop them in multiple places to where their board's going to be manageable to be broken with like a Regeki or a Burner or an Anchor. So looking at my Master Duel build, so this was something I got asked a lot about, but Camellia is a broken card. This card is any 2 monsters is combo. So where we were really worried about not seeing Ray in this deck, which is still a concern, now any 2 bodies you put on the board is just Striker combo. Whatever combo it is that you're trying to go for, or like steal your opponent's board, break their board, you just have access to your engine, which I think is extremely important. And I play 2 of it because this card also is just something that dumps a card into your grave from deck, which is automatically insane because now you don't have to go to battle anymore with Hayate. But the other thing too is that you're able to play things like Nib. You can play the Fire Attacker to be able to draw more, the Phantasme to be able to draw more. You can play Rock to clear the board. You have ways to be able to pressure your opponent when you're going second, so you don't feel just dead in the water watching your opponent set up a board. You can interact with them. So I think that's something that's really important, especially in Master Duel, where we have cards like Maxi, and then we're also using the Phantasme. And then in the sideboard, if you want to, unless you just want to main it, you can also play like the Molcharmies. The Fuaros in the TCG is just going to replace the Maxi here, which honestly, if we get Camellia, this might just be the list for me right now. But this is obviously just Fuaros, which I do think that this is pretty crazy. And in the side, you might want to think about leaning toward more go first options. If this was transferred to like the TCG as a deck list, right? Obviously, Master Duel, you have no side. But overall, I do find this to be a very consistent deck so far. And if you want to see more gameplay of this, definitely let me know down below in the comment section. I can try to get that for you of Master Duel, which is pretty fun. But you have so many ways to be able to get into your engine, get into spell count, be able to get bodies on board. And you already know, once strikers rolling and the ball's just going, you're winning that game. And I also play Tryhard in my extra deck. I think that card's insane. It's just really slept on, and that's something that you can put a lot of pressure on the board with very little effort. Now, this is another build that I've come across in my testing, just playing with like the runic cards, and you can do something like this. Just have like the one of there can be in the main deck, because why not? You'll draw it. And then post side, you can go after things like Nibiru, Dark Hole, Dark Ruler, Evenly, Regeki, whatever it is you want to use as a board break. Overall, I do think that the Runic build is weird because I don't like Evenly in Striker because I love the battle phase in Striker. I think that it's just way too important with cards like Hayate as well. And so Evenly really does cut off a really crucial piece off of your gameplay, and that's something that I never want to get rid of. So having no battle is really bad for me. But you do get your spell count, you do get a lot of draws, which is great. And it gives you an alt win con, helps you go first. But at the same time, I think that going second right now, especially with this deck, having the access to the 6th card, that's pretty nice. And you could always go second with a deck like this too. You don't have to go first. You could do what I did before. I played Bishals in the main deck, and then I played Chaos Angel in my extra deck, which was really fun. So you gotta kind of figure out how you want to go about it. But it is a pretty good time playing a build like this. It's not the strongest, but at the same time, I do think that there's a lot of potential. Now, this is my most updated TCG list. This is going second. A lot of hand traps. Nibiru, Ash, Valor, Ogre, Imperium. I think Ogre is crazy right now, especially with Yubel being one of the better decks. You should be on that card. Regeki, Lightning Storm is the blow-up cards. I have the Thrust with the 1 talent, and then just the very clean number of striker spells. I think that linkage is dog, so I would not play that at more than 1. It's just an option in the toolbox. You don't need to play 3 of it. For everyone who says, but what about the kill line? It's not real. You'll never get an opportunity to do the kill line. There's almost never going to be a board wide open, and if there is, your opponent bricked and you're fine. So I wouldn't worry about it. And then it's at 1, so you can just get to it if you need it. In the sideboard, we have the Pankratops, which I think are really good for the board breaking, especially. We have the Dark Ruler and the Droplet. I think both are really good in very specific scenarios. I think Droplet's really solid, but I like having both, and then setting the Jamming Waves. The only time I ever think Typhon is a really good card in a deck like this, where you can put it in your EMZ and just protect it with things like Ego Booster for playing that, Widows, or whatever you have. Then the Goddess as well, because it gives you another option. But I do hope that you enjoyed today's video. The future of Striker looks very interesting, but it really just depends on how we go about our new support, what we get, and what we can do with the deck. Definitely interested to see what you all have to say about playing Striker right now and what your experiences are. If you haven't already checked out my Twitch, Twitter, Discord, Instagram, or subscribed to the channel, definitely go ahead and do so. And I'll talk to you all in the next video. Thank you.